What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and this is another Datasheet Deep-Dive. We're going to take one datasheet in Warhammer 40k, break it down in excruciating detail. And today we are going to be talking about Meganobz. Meganobz have been in a lot of discussion recently because of the recent release of the Ork Codex and how powerful they are in several Ork detachments. And we're going to be going over those synergies today, as well as some ways that you can defeat them. But first, a breakdown of their datasheet itself. On their top level, Meganobz are a fairly standard, resilient, heavy infantry. They come in at a slow speed of 5, but impressive toughness of 6, with a 2+ base armor save and 3 wounds. Unlike many other heavy infantry in the game, however, they are not protected by an invulnerable save, making high AP weapons particularly dangerous for them. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that under the effects of the WA, they will get a 5+ invulnerable save, just thanks to that ability. Now, that defensive profile is further improved during their WA by their Crump in Time ability, giving them a 4+ feel no pain while the WA is active. And as we'll talk about later, the most commonly played detachment for these guys will give them 2 turns of WA within Bully Boys, putting them to that 5+ invulnerable save, 4+ feel no pain defensive profile for an additional battle round. They start at a base level with a custom shooter, a 4-shot rapid fire 2 weapon, able to shoot up to 6 shots, but at a pretty weak ballistic skill of 5 with strength 4, AP 0 for 1 damage. They can swap that over to a combi weapon, and their melee weapon is a Power Claw, 3 attack, strength 9, AP 2, 2 damage weapon. Their base weapon skill on all of their weapons is only a 4+, making them relatively inconsistent and really forcing you to source accuracy improving effects in order to make the Meganobz worth it in melee. Now, those Power Claws or shooting weapons can be swapped out for Kill Saws, which is a lower attack volume but at a much more impressive profile, strength 12, AP 3 for 2 damage. You can choose to replace both of these weapons with Kill Saws, giving you the twin Kill Saw profile, which is identical to the standard Kill Saw profile, but it gets the twin linked keyword, giving it wound rerolls. The Kill Saw is an impressive strength of 12, AP 3, and 2 damage, and while it does only get those 2 attacks, it is good enough at can opening that it really specializes Meganobz into that anti-armor role. They are excellent at breaking down vehicles of basically any weight, especially when combined with characters. Now, in instances where you do want Meganobz to be able to punch their way out of a scrap with a large number of enemies, the Power Claw is going to be slightly better, especially if they do not have a good armor save and you are wounding on 2s. But in basically any other situation, if the AP 3 is relevant or you need the additional hitting power from the twin link on the second Kill Saw, the Kill Saws are almost always a better option. Orks tend to be pretty good at clearing enemy hordes with just their standard Ork boys. Meganobz, being a little bit more dedicated anti-armor, makes sense in that role. You're further incentivized to replace their ranged attacks with melee attacks because they kind of have an anti-synergy with the normal use case of Meganobz. Typically, because Meganobz will be gaining additional offensive and defensive benefits during the WA turn, that is the turn that you want to be committing them into melee. So they are either jumping out of their transports, coming out of reserve, or just running up the table, advancing, charging, getting +1 attack, getting their strength bonus, and their 4+ feel no pain for the swing back. However, if you are advancing and charging, you cannot fire their ranged weapons because none of them have assault. So including the custom shooter or the combi weapons means that they probably won't get to attack them because they aren't likely to be in line of sight of the enemy until the turn that they're advancing. It would be interesting if they had the pistol keyword and they could fire into melee, because one weakness that the Meganobz have that we'll discuss later is a weakness to numerous low toughness enemies. And able to fire 6 custom shooter shots into melee indiscriminately would be pretty interesting, but we don't have that. So 90% of the time, I think you are going to be taking the Kill Saws with these guys. Now with that, let's talk about some attachments we can use to buff them up. The first one is probably the most straightforward, the War Boss in Mega Armor. This guy's only attachment option is Meganobz, and he has a big benefit for them. He gives them +1 to hit, so he is already counteracting that poor weapon skill that the unit has at a base level. Awkwardly, he doesn't really benefit that much from his own +1 to hit because his huge choppa is weapon skill 2 already. So he is not only benefiting the unit by making all their melee attacks hit on 3s, but he is also bringing 4 additional high accuracy attacks. These These things also get a big benefit when you're on the WA turn. The huge choppa goes from damage 2 to damage 3, and otherwise it comes in at a strength of 12, AP of 2, and 2 damage. However, only 4 attacks, so that low attack volume that we see on the standard Meganobz carries over. The Warboss in Mega Armor is basically the standard attachment for the Meganobz squad, and it does shore up the weakness of their low accuracy. So this guy is kind of the baseline that we're going to be looking at when we're comparing to other characters. Now, the second one that we occasionally see attached into is the Big Mech in Mega Armor. This guy buffs the ranged weapons of his attached unit, giving them reroll hit rolls of 1. Although, as we mentioned before, ranged weapons with a kind of hybrid melee ranged unit in the Ork faction don't really work that well. So we're probably not taking him for this reason. The Big Mech in Mega Armor has a wide variety of ranged weapons he can equip. He comes stock with a custom Mega Blasta, a strength 9 AP 2 D6 damage weapon, and once he's attached, he is actually going to be able to benefit from his own leadership ability, so he is getting reroll 1s to hit with his ranged attacks using these relatively powerful weapons. He also comes stock with a Power Claw, and he can, if he wants to, replace his custom Mega Blasta with a combi weapon. Probably not going to do that because it's largely worse, or a custom shooter, as well as a Kill Saw if he wants that strength 12 AP 3 profile. Interestingly, the weapon skill on his Power Claw is a 3, so he actually hits a little bit more accurately than the standard models in the unit. I'm not sure entirely why that is, but he also gets extra attacks with it, so I guess he's just a Power Claw aficionado. Now, on top of that, he also gets a back-mounted equipment slot. He can either take a Teleport Blasta, a awkwardly 3-shot blast weapon, which I don't actually think works in the rules, but that is what they say it does. At strength 8, AP 1, 3 damage, or he can take a custom force field, and this is really why you're going to be equipping the Big Mech to your Meganobz squads. Unlike the Warboss, who is a strict accuracy improvement, the Big Mech is more of a survivability buff. He brings some relatively high accuracy attacks to the unit alongside some shooting attacks and makes their shooting better, but the combination of his custom force field, his Fix That Armor Up ability, and his Grot Oiler are really what makes this guy shine. Fix That Armor Up allows him to return 1 bodyguard model to the unit in each of your command phases, meaning that he's going to be repairing a Meganob back to full functionality and coming back at full wounds. The Grot Oiler is a once per game war gear option that lets him burn it in order to regenerate 1 model in the unit for D3 wounds. Doesn't have to be the Big Mech himself, it could be just any of the Meganobs, meaning that you get a little bit of a reanimation protocols energy here. You can fix that armor up to bring a guy back and then heal whoever's damaged in the unit back to full using the Grot Oiler, getting you potentially 5 wounds worth of Meganobs back into your unit. And if you are being benefited by a 4+ and feel no pain, those are 5 wounds that are not going away anytime soon. On top of that, he fixes the problem that these guys normally have of not having a base in invulnerable save by granting that 4+ invulnerable save if you have taken the custom force field, which you will probably be doing. So you get to choose between these 2 attachment options. Do you want a more offensively oriented Meganobz squad, or do you want the more defensively oriented one? And I think, generally speaking, you are probably going to be taking the Mega Armored Warboss option, simply because you want these guys to be able to do as much damage in melee when you commit them as possible. They are already relatively defensive, especially if you are committing them on the WA turn, which is 99% of the time the turn that they are getting stuck into melee. Being able to improve their survivability and their resilience past that is a little bit less of a priority. Now, last but absolutely, certainly, in no uncertain terms, not least, we have Ghazghkull Thraka, the last attachment option for Meganobz. They are the only bodyguard option that Ghazghkull has as a leader. Now, Ghazghkull is essentially the war boss, but on steroids, which I guess makes sense for the biggest war boss that there is. He brings an insane leadership ability, Prophet of the Great Wa, which gives his unit +1 to hit, just like the war boss does, but also +1 to wound. In addition, if you called a WA during that battle round, you score critical hits on the roll of a 5+ rather than a 6. This combos together with Makari's ability, his little Gretchen friend, who gives everyone within 12 inches, including his own unit, lethal hits during the WA round. That means that this unit's going to be triggering lethal hits on a 5-up, and if you are in a detachment like Warhorde that grants you sustained hits thanks to the detachment ability, you could also be triggering sustained hits on that same result as well. Ghazghkull Thraka is an exponential increase in the damage output of Meganobz. He himself is also incredibly powerful. He can swing with Gork's Claw, either a strike or sweep profile. The strike at strength 14 AP 3 4 damage with 6 attacks. attacks or 12 attacks with his sweep at strength 8 AP2 for a flat 2 damage. Now, despite all of those offensive buffs, Gaskell Thraka, unlike the Big Mech, does not do anything to protect the unit. He does have Makari attached to himself, but both Gaskell and Makari have the character keyword, meaning that once Gaskell is attached into a unit, wounds cannot be assigned to Makari until the bodyguard unit is dead. Since anytime a character is part of an attached unit, it is not eligible to be assigned saving throws. This means that Makari's impressive 2+ invulnerable save cannot be used until the Meganobz are dead and Gaskell Thraka's by himself. So while Makari improves the survivability of Gaskell, he doesn't actually improve the survivability of the unit. Now, all of these attachments are particularly amazing, but let's talk about the detachments that Meganobz shine in. The first one, and I think the most obvious, is the Bully Boys detachment, and this is the one where we're most commonly seeing Meganobz played currently. That's largely for the fact that this is a detachment entirely constructed around Meganobz. The detachment ability affects Warboss, Nob, and Meganob units, and grants them an additional use of the WA that can be used after the standard WA is called. As I was mentioning before, this allows Meganobz to gain access to that enhanced speed, strength, and survivability in addition to their own buff of getting a 4+ Feel No Pain for 2 battle rounds instead of the normal 1. You can also combo them with some of the enhancements, giving them Deep Strike with a Teleporta, allowing them to rapid ingress onto the table, and they can be affected by literally every single stratagem in the detachment. The most important ones, in my opinion, are Hulking Brutes, which allows you to reduce the armor penetration characteristic of enemy shooting attacks targeting the unit. Important to note that it is only shooting, not melee attacks. Because they don't have an invulnerable save baked in unless you're on the WA turn or have a Big Mac attached, but they do have a strong armor save. Armor of Contempt style effects like this are disproportionately effective for Meganobz. Now, in my opinion, the next most synergistic detachment with the unit is the Warhorde. As I mentioned before, the detachment gives sustained hits to all Ork units, which will not only combo with Gaskell Thraka's improved criticals, but also is essentially mathematically a +1 to hit buff, and will effectively stack alongside the Warboss's +1 to hit buff if you have him attached, effectively making the low volume of melee attacks that the Meganobz have highly accurate. It can also make them significantly faster. Oftentimes you'll need to deliver them to the fight in transports or out of strategic reserve, potentially even using a teleporter if you're in Billy Boys, but the Warhorde gives them the opportunity to simply move across the table normally. The Follow Me Lad enhancement can give +2 to move characteristic to the models in the unit, bringing them to an above average movement of 7, and you can use Here We Go to give them +2 to both advance and charge rolls. If you are calling that on their WA turn, they can then essentially be moving up to movement 9 and be getting +2 to charge, increasing their threat range by a total of 4 inches from the stratagem and 2 from the enhancement, for a grand total of 6 inches. Suddenly, a unit moving the equivalent of 11 inches plus 3d6 across the table is actually pretty impressive. And with the survivability of that unit on the crackback, your opponent's probably not really going to want them to be sunk into their lines that quickly. Being a high resilience unit, you can also use Ard as nails on them, since they are not Grot monster or vehicle, subtracting 1 from their wound roll and giving it they have a high toughness value of 6. This means that most sort of mid-weight melee attacks are going to be wounding them on 6s, and even heavy anti-tank shooting will be wounding them on 3s or 4s, which can combo with their already impressive defensive stat line. Now, similarly, they do have a little bit of a weird synergy with the Green Tide detachment. This is the Horde-focused detachment that is mostly around buffing regular boys squads, but one thing that boys squads don't have is a strong defensive profile, and while Green Tide does buff them to the point that they do become sticky to kill, they oftentimes need a little bit of a bulwark unit to anchor in the center of the tide and ensure that enemies that are good at infantry sweeping aren't good at killing everything in the army. The combination here is between the enhancement Raucous Warcaller, which counts your unit as being 10 models even if it would normally be below that. You can attach a character into a unit of potentially 6 Meganobz, counting their reduced size of 7 up to 10. That then unlocks the Green Tide detachment rule, giving them reroll saving throws of 1. This isn't armor saving throws, it also works on your WA invulnerable saving throw if you are on the WA turn, and because they are already a high base armor save, even AP2 attacks are going to be putting them on a 3+ if they're benefiting from cover. A 3+ save rerolling 1s is ridiculously tanked. The downside is that the detachment stratagems essentially only affect boy squads, meaning that the Meganobz will have no other synergy with the army. However, they are probably good enough to warrant inclusion in some builds of Greentide anyway. Now, last and maybe least, they do also have a little bit of synergy with the Dread Mob, and this is only because they can attach a big mech into the unit. The mech attached into the Meganobz squad gives them the mech keyword, meaning that they then benefit from the try that button detachment roll, as well as exactly one stratagem. They can use bigger shells for bigger gits on their ranged weapons to improve their wound roll and damage characteristic against monsters and vehicles. I'm not entirely sure if you're going to be using them to try to knock out enemy vehicles with their pretty weak ranged profiles, but access to the detachment ability is much more important. This gives you a random effect every time you attack, or you can choose to take the hazardous keyword in order to choose one effect that you'll gain. It's every time you shoot or fight, meaning that you can use it in melee to buff their twin kill saws. Every time you do so, you roll on a chart, either getting sustained hits 1, lethal hits, or a rending effect, improving their armor penetration characteristics. On critical wounds, they'll gain one of those randomly or suffer the hazardous keyword in order to choose one. Given that the kill saws are twin linked, being able to benefit from a critical wound effect like the +1 AP is actually fairly solid, because these guys are going to be rolling a bunch of dice and have a fairly high chance of getting those critical wounds. The sustained hits 1 is also good because, as I mentioned before, statistically it essentially just passively improves their accuracy, giving them an additional bonus to hit. Lethal hits is probably the weakest keyword out of all of these, but it's definitely not a bad thing to roll out. You can also further improve their survivability with Smoky Gubbins, giving the entire unit stealth. So in addition to having a decent toughness and save characteristic and a good feel no pain on one battle round, they are also going to be -1 to hit, which can definitely help. And speaking of help, you're going to need it to deal with these guys, so let's move on and talk about dealing with Meganobz. Now, first off, actually killing them is a little problematic. As I mentioned before, strong armor saves, access to invulnerable saves, and a good feel no pain on a multi-wound body is super tough to deal with. One interesting thing that happens with feel no pains is that it makes the normal anti-heavy infantry weapon profiles that you would typically see, things like heavy plasma cannons that are high AP and 3 damage, really annoying to attack into them, because when their feel no pain is active, 50% of that damage on average is going the way of the dodo. However, you have no control over when those feel no pains are successful. Oftentimes you'll lose efficiency by having models save against one attack, be left on only 1 or 2 wounds, and then be overkilled by the second attack. This is a similar phenomenon that we see with units like Canoptic Wraith that feel much more difficult to kill than they statistically should, and means that the normal answers that folks have to heavy infantry won't work if they're being buffed by the WA. The answer to this is 1 damage weapons. 1 damage weapons will always deal their damage with hyper efficiency, even into a strong feel no pain. The problem is sourcing 1 damage weapons that have a high enough AP to punch through a 2+ save that could potentially be armor of contempted and be in cover, but if you can do that, and you can stack them with other armor penetration improving or cover ignoring effects, getting a bunch of solid AP1, AP2, potentially even AP3 1 damage attacks into the Meganobz will actually scythe through them fairly quickly. Also, doing so in melee bypasses a lot of those defensive technologies. You can't use cover or the armor of contempt from bully boys in melee, but you have to worry that Meganobz are good at punching. What they aren't good at doing is actually killing many enemy units. Because they only come in at a base 2 attacks per model, not including any attached characters, which basically outside Gaskell Thraka cap at 4 attacks each, the unit outside of the WA turn does not have a high volume of attacks, and while they can be buffed with their accuracy, they're still only making usually 16-ish attacks into your unit. This means that if you're bogging them down with small idiots, you can actually lock them into melee and make it difficult for them to maneuver around the table, since it's not super likely that they'll kill 10 infantry models that you engage them with. So 10 Imperial Guardsmen running into the Meganobz will get sliced and diced, but probably not wiped out and actually pin the unit in melee for that subsequent turn. If you can put even larger or more resilient units with invulnerable saves or feel no pains or other defensive mechanics into them, you can actually get the unit stuck in for multiple turns. And while the WA can potentially break them out of that containment, that then means that they're using their additional WA attacks to clear your chaff infantry rather than can open the vehicles that they really want to be hitting. On top of that, you may not even need to charge them to deal with them. Screening and move blocking is the name of the game against orcs of all varieties. Typically, Meganobz will be carried into battle on a transport, either a battle wagon or in a truck, and surrounding the transport and preventing them from disembarking is a huge piece of technology when dealing with these units. On top of that, just jamming them, moving models just outside their engagement range and preventing them from moving forward, will slow them down even if they have all of the movement buffs from a detachment like Warhorde. One thing to keep in mind, however, is that it is important to keep your screens close enough that the enemy cannot charge directly through them. In this case, Meganobz are 40mm based models. Keeping your own models closer than 40mm together means that even when they charge, the Meganobz will not be able to move through your coherency and will actually get stuck behind your models. That oftentimes prevents them from being able to effectively use pile in and consolidate moves to move extra distance up the table and really restricts where they can go. Once the WA has been expended, they lose that feel no pain and they're much easier to kill. So donating them units, either to tie them up in melee or prevent them from moving until the WA has echoed away into the distance, is hugely important for actually being able to kill these guys. Once that happens, they're basically turned into a Space Marine infantry unit, and those things are not the most survivable guys in the universe, and we see Space Marines get ripped off the table all the time. But with that, let me know down in the comment section if you found the best way to deal with Meganobz, or if you're an Ork player and you found the best way to play with Meganobz. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Thanks as well to everybody who supports the channel, either over on Patreon at patreon.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subscribers. All you people are amazing, and I love you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.